Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Roaring Agents podcast. Today, I'm here with Brittany Hodak. She is an award-winning entrepreneur, author, customer service experience speaker to organizations including American Express and United Nations. She has worked with Walmart, Disney, Katy Perry, and Dolly Parton. I love Dolly Parton. She must be so much fun.
Everybody loves Dolly. She is. She's amazing.
Forbes said, if you have fans, you need this book. I had the pleasure of hearing you speak for 1,000 Watt. I think that was in February or March here in Portland. Absolutely fantastic. That's where I got your book. Appreciate you so much coming on the podcast. I think we're going to have some great things to help agents get better in this tough market.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here on the show.
There's a Seinfeld joke I love that I think fits with this perfectly. He talks about weddings and that you've got the bride who's in this gorgeous, one-of-a-kind dress. You've got bridesmaids who are in less than amazing dresses quite often. And then you've got the grooms. They're all dressed the same. And that's in case the groom runs away, everyone takes one step to the right, and she just marries the next guy. He's literally called the best man. So in real estate, we are all seen as the same until we can prove that we're different. And I feel that that's really what your book speaks to, is how can we stand out in a world of sameness? So how can we not be so replaceable?
Well, I think it all really starts with getting clarity on what makes you not like everyone else, what makes you not replaceable. In my book, I talk a lot about apathy, which I think is the biggest and most underrated threat to every business, which is people just saying, who cares? Like, so what? You are replaceable. And in a world that is driven increasingly by experiences, the harsh reality is that you are replaceable until you prove otherwise, until you can show beyond a shadow of a doubt that you aren't like the rest. The assumption that people are going to have is that you are. And so it's not until you take the steps to overpower that apathy. It's not until you have a clear, compelling, concise answer to when somebody says, so what? That you will begin to put yourself on a path to creating superfans, because you have so differentiated yourself from all of the would-be competitors to where the path forward is very clear for the people who are the right ones to work with you.
So let's say I'm a new agent and there's a neighborhood that I really like, or an area I like. There's already 3-5 established agents. Plus, in my overall market, Portland area, there's about 10,000 agents. How does everyone find a unique angle that matters to somebody else? Because we can sometimes downplay what we are in our past, which is like, I just know how to write up a contract. I'm not unique. So how do we really make that's a marketable or worth grabbing onto?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I would say the first thing you do is to realize that you don't have 10,000 competitors, right? You have maybe 1,000, because in any given area, if you look at the numbers that people are actually doing, there are a lot of real estate agents who are not doing this as their full-time job, either because they don't want to or they don't have the ability to. So go ahead and discount many of those people, because the truth is you don't want to be average, right? If you wanted to be average, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now about how to be better. So look at the top few people in your market that are crushing it, either by volume or whatever metric speaks to you in terms of what success looks like into your mind, but like probably volume to many of you is a good place to start. Ask yourself, what are they doing? What are they doing right? What are they maybe not doing that you feel like you could do? Ask yourself, what could you do to make someone choose you instead of them? If you're going up against people with a proven track record, with giant Rolodex of people that they've worked with who know things that you don't know, what is your competitive advantage? What can you do that they can't? What are you willing to do that they're not? And based on the stage that you're at in your life, based on, the intentional design that you want to bring to your work, it may be that you're available more hours than they are. It may be that you'll do certain things that they won't. Like, whatever it is, ask yourself, how can you set yourself apart? Why would someone want to choose to work with you instead of your competitors? You have to start there. And so many people, I think, come into it and they're like, I'll figure out how I'm different later. I'll figure it out. And you wonder why you're not getting the listings. You wonder why you're not getting the clients, or you wonder why a client isn't sending friends and family your way after you work with them. If they don't understand why you're different, the natural assumption is that you aren't. So they're probably going to go with somebody who is a little bit closer to them, or who's offered to give them a bit of a deal, or who can say, I've been doing it longer, or I do it different because. So the first thing that you've really got to do is get clarity on your story. Why would someone want to work with you? Because if you don't know, they're definitely not going to be able to figure it out.
I love that you reframe that to that there's only 1,000 agents that you're competing, because I can get in our head, oh my gosh, there's all these agents, and you're so dead on. There are
Yeah,
so
it's like,
few.
do you want to compete with the people in the bottom 20%? No. So like, forget they exist. Who cares?
So if I look at the other agents, I could tell myself, well, they've got money. So if I'm a new agent and I don't have money, it's like, well, they have money. They can spend here, they can do there. But they don't have the time you have. A new agent with no clients or one client has a lot more than the producer who's got, 20 clients or whatever. Where else can a brand new agent have an impact on experience? That's really that thing that you focus on. How can they change that at such a little, those little minute things to have a big impact?
Start with the people that you know. There are always like let me put it this way. If you're getting into real estate and you don't have people in your life right now that can either work with you directly or refer people to you, you probably should not be in real estate. Because real estate is a relationship business. It is driven by your ability to connect with and to people to help them. And if you're at a point where you're like, oh, I would love to get into real estate, but I don't have any friends, or I would love to get into real estate, I don't have that many professional relationships, I'm just going to put it out there, like, you probably are not going to be very successful as a realtor. So assuming that you do have people in your life who either are looking to buy or sell a home in the area where you're practicing, or say, oh yeah, like, let me look at who I know that lives in this area. Assuming that you have that base, because again, if you don't, just to be perfectly honest, like, maybe you should do something else. Starting there, make sure that everyone you work with has the best experience they could ever have, because that's what is going to set you apart, right? We're living in an experience economy. What does it feel like to work with you? That's what people are going to say when they're making referrals, when they're leaving you a review, when they're talking about you. Superfans are created one interaction at a time, one experience at a time. So as you said, if you're not like a super high producer, take advantage of that extra time you have to do an amazing job at exceeding your customers' expectations, because that customer will create more customers. There's a quote in my book by a guy named Shiv Singh that I love. Shiv said, the purpose of a business is to create a customer who creates customers. And if you can do that, if every single customer that you serve leads to other customers, you will build a real estate business that is successful beyond your wildest dreams. But every customer is an influencer, and every experience is the one that you should assume the future of your practice will either fall or stand on.
The thing about the friend, so it is hard usually that first year or two to get your friends and family to work with you, because they know you're doing something yesterday. And some people have found easier to get new clients, but going back to the experience is, I think a lot of people treat their friends and family like friends and family, and they don't treat them the professional way that they should. They're just kind of like, yeah, I'll give you a call whenever. They don't act the same way that they would if it was a cold lead or, a random person. And maybe they semi-sabotage themselves in that way, that they don't come across professional in that experience. And that would play into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you have that fear, and again, if you are going to be successful in real estate, you have to have the ability to treat everyone professionally, whether they're your sibling or not, because again, that is what it takes to be like the top 20%. I'm not saying you can't have an average career. Absolutely you can. But again, I think anybody who's listening to this podcast right now is doing it with the intention of not being average.
Yeah, you hope so. I want them to not be average. Let's talk about merging stories together. Talk about that a little bit, because I've got a few things to ask about that.
Sure. So in my book, Creating Superfans, I tried to come up with a framework that anyone can follow to turn more of their customers into fans. And this is based on several things. It's based on 20 years of experience working in, various industries and facets of customer experience. It's based on social psychology. It's based on shopper marketing. But really, the framework that I put forward is this: Superfans are created in the intersection of your story and every customer story, because that is where apathy dies. I talked a little bit about apathy earlier. If you want to overpower apathy, you have to force someone to care. The quickest way to force someone to care is by connecting your story to theirs, by making your thing relevant to their life in a way that is very hard to ignore, dismiss, forget about, etc. So the framework that I write about in my book is called the supermodel. It's a 5-part formula that if you do these 5 things in the correct order, I promise you, you will turn your customers into superfans. So the first one is S. Start with your story. I was sort of alluding to that a little bit before. You've got to figure out what your uniqueness is, what your differentiation is, essentially why someone should care. And then the second step, U, is understand your customer story. And that's all about getting clarity on what exactly you can do to make this the best experience that customer has had. So understanding what your customer is struggling with, what's the transformation that they're hoping to undergo, what reservations do they have about this entire process, essentially what you can do to put them at ease to make this the best experience they have ever had. And everything is experience. Every phone call, every open house, every email about how things are going, every update, all of it matters. So you can't just crush some of it. You've got to be intentional about all of it. So taking time to truly understand, like, what are the preferences that this customer has in terms of how you contact them, how often you contact them. Do they want to be kept up to date about every potential thing? Or are they like, don't bug me till you have an offer, or don't bug me until you have a house to show me? You can't treat every customer the same. You've got to treat them the way that they want to be treated, because that's what's going to make working with you feel like the best experience they've ever had.
That treating them all the same, that is a big thing that happens in real estate, because I coach agents and they're like, well, I want to get CRM, put people on a drip campaign and all this. Is like, but you don't know.
Not everybody wants to be in a drip campaign. Like, why are you going to show up? If you can't even show up and add value to me in this one-on-one interaction that's happening right now, why should I trust you to add value in my inbox?
Yeah.
3 times a week for the next month. Like,
I had a client after a closing, and I'd known him for a long time, and I hadn't really stayed in touch very consistently, like they tell you in real estate. But he called me and said, "Hey, I'm ready to sell my house." I'm like, "Great." Went to his house. He had the glasses from a different company, like drinking glasses from another company. Still chose me. So, you think those gifts work sometimes. It's still about relationship. But after the deal, I called him. He's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" A little chit chat. He goes, "You don't have to call me. Oh, you're my guy." I was like, okay, so this is someone who does not want those checkup calls. He's a high D as far as the disc goes. Like, don't waste my time.
And getting clarity on where people fall is your job. Like, that is your job as the agent or prospective agent, if you're still, jockeying for that position at the onset. You want to ask the types of questions that allow you to quickly figure out how and how often this contact wants you to communicate with them.
How best do you find to ask that without it seeming, I don't know, cheesy or weird, or I don't know, how do you ask that? Hey, can I 30, like in real estate, there's a 36 touches. Can I contact you 36 times a year? How do you?
Absolutely not. So first of all, by showing up with genuine curiosity, you're going to have a pretty good idea of where somebody is going to fall by actively listening to what they're saying and what they're telling you. And then it sounds like this. Hey, I know that everyone has different preferences. Everybody likes to be communicated with differently. My job is to make this the best experience you've ever had, not just buying or selling your home, but period. So let's talk about what a perfect partnership looks like to you. And then you can begin to ask them the questions. How often do you want me to contact you? How do you want me to contact you? Find out. And then if you're talking about post sale, it's saying things like, hey, you just made one of the biggest purchases that you're ever going to make in your life. I would love to continue to add value to help you protect this investment. Many of my clients tell me that they love getting an email from me twice a month with tips specific to the Portland area about things that are happening. So it's not just about like, hey, now it's time to like aerate the yard, or it's time to like winterize the pipes, or, here's somebody who can help you with this. But like, again, like whatever your shtick is, like when you read my book, I lay out the system in a way that the reason that I say start with your story is because you've got to understand what you're going to be leaning into, what it is that you're going to use as your differentiator. Like if you're someone who loves events and always knows what's happening in the community, like awesome, you should share that, but don't try to do that if you're somebody who's like never wants to leave your house or go do anything. So it's got to be rooted in an authentic desire that you have to help your customers, and have that somehow be related to either their life or their house, which, let's be honest, is just about anything in the world, right? That can be related to their life or their house. So it's having those conversations. It's just saying, hey, here's, let me know. Like a lot of my customers tell me that like, this is one of their favorite emails that they get twice a month because there's always something that they didn't know in it. I'd love to add you to the list. Cool. And people will tell you yes or no. Don't ask for permission to do the, like gifting style things, but remember that if something has your logo on it, it's not a gift, it's an ad. Like those glasses that you saw in that guy's house, that was not a gift. That was like an ad that someone gave him. And for whatever reason, either because they were nice glasses or he like didn't have other glasses, or those were the only ones that are clean or whatever, he was using them. But clearly there was no affinity to the company because of that gift. It was just something to like pour his drink in.
Let's branch off on this just a little bit. I have never really liked that stamping of my name or a company's name on those things because I felt like it cheapened it. And then there's the Christmas cards. Agents or people send Christmas cards and then they'll drop their business card in. I'm like, that for me just kills any kind of goodwill. And I don't know if that's just my personality or
I am 100% in alignment. If you would not do it in your personal life, you should not do it in your professional life. You would never write your name on the bottom of a pair of sneakers that you gave your friend for their birthday so that they would remember they were from you. That is preposterous. But people do that all the time in business. And you're right. You should never, ever, ever put a business card in a card because that does cheapen it. That makes it feel very transactional. I'm not a huge fan of Christmas cards. Not just because not everybody celebrates Christmas, but also because everybody sends Christmas cards. Like, I don't want to compete with the dentist and the chiropractor and the massage therapist and the 17 other realtors and the guy who did my title 6 years ago and for some weird reason is like still sending me Christmas cards every year, even though I never met him and couldn't tell you his name. Like, don't be in that holiday.
Yeah.
Send people Halloween cards. Tell them, how scary it is to imagine life without them, right? Send them a Valentine, tell them how much you love getting to know them, right? Send them a Happy New Year's card, telling them that you hope that it's the best year they've ever had. Like, don't communicate, don't make a big part of your marketing spend or strategy between like November 15th and January 1st, because that's where everybody else is. Yeah. Send them a pack of Lucky Charms on St. Patrick's Day and tell them how lucky you are to like have them in your neighborhood. I don't know, do whatever you want, but that's like fun. Don't spend your money between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
This gets a little bit more in the minutia, but I social media post about holidays or important things from businesses just ring hollow to me. Do you have any take on that, of if it's valuable or not?
Again, I think it goes back to who you are, like what your brand is. But there are certainly ones that you should stay away from. Like I always laugh. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there was like a Zac Efron post that went super viral in like a terrible way. It was like, today I'm thankful for two things: Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and 10 million followers on Instagram. And like that was his MLK Day post. So like clearly there are things that it's just easy to be like, yeah, don't do that. That's like ridiculous or silly. But where it starts to get blurry is that people are like, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to post, right? And then while you may not have any ill intentions, putting your logo on a picture of the Twin Towers for 9/11 will rightfully so outrage people and make them say, well, if this person is so tone deaf about this, that how could they like ever help me buy or find a home, right? Like this person doesn't even know how to use Facebook. How could they help me with, a 7-figure transaction? So I would say never, ever, ever post because you feel like you're supposed to, or because someone told you to. And again, I'm sort of not like following the framework here. Obviously, in my book, I do talk about social media. There's an entire chapter about how to do social media correctly, what to do, what not to do. But it all is rooted in your story, understanding that you need to have a point of view about why you matter, how you're different from everybody else, and then a strategy that connects that story to the people who are potential customers or partners of yours. So showing up at a frequency in the places with the messages that matter to them, because everything else is just noise. And like, I don't care, if you tell me that you have to communicate with somebody 36 times in a year for them to remember, I will tell you it's because 34 of those pieces of communication were absolutely useless. People are like, oh, they have to hear something 10 times to remember. Yeah, if it's shit information. Yeah, if it's adding literal no value. But if something is concise and like relevant, if you're overpowering that apathy, it takes exactly one time. It takes exactly one touch. The problem is people like don't have that clarity. They'd rather, throw spaghetti at the wall 100 times and say like, I don't know why nothing is working, than to actually do the hard work of figuring out what the message is that's going to resonate with the right potential customer.
And this is what I tell agents is that, they want to try to do everything to figure out what works or whatever, but they're not doing it at a high level. And if you're not doing it at a high level, you're not going to be memorable, because you're right. There are agents meet somebody one time and that person's like, you are amazing, you know so much. And they'll come back to them. Like my client that I was talking about earlier didn't have a lot of interaction, but he came back to me because he trusted me and he knew me from the past, and he didn't need all those other things because of the impression I left before. So I appreciate that. Going along with that of how agents want to do everything, they also are scared to get into a niche. Or have this story, because what they're afraid of is, well, if I really know condos downtown, no one's going to ask me to do the suburbs, or if they see me as this. And so I want to be everything to everybody. Kind of go into the danger of that and why it is valuable to have your story and go to an area.
Because when you try to be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to no one. That's it. You're forgettable. You don't have a specialty. Nobody is like, I have something very specific going on with my health. Let me go to the most generalized doctor I can find. So you can specialize in a few things, but if you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're never going to get specialized in anything. And like, honestly, if you're really good at selling condos downtown and become the only person who anybody wants to buy their condos downtown from, you're probably going to have a pretty great business. There are probably a lot of people who want to buy condos downtown. And if you specialize in that and you create a great experience, you're probably going to start picking off a lot of business from some of those other agents that want to be everything to everybody. So if you're like, I'm going to be condos downtown, and I know that people who are often selling their condos downtown are selling it because they want to go live in the suburbs with a big house because it's time to start a family. So I'm also going to specialize in that because that serves the same client, but at a different point in their life. Then you can do those two things very successfully together, and they're not mutually exclusive. Because if you're saying, this is what I'm really great at as a buyer agent, this is what I'm really great at as a seller's agent, and of course I can do other things, but the type of customer that I want to serve is very likely going to be going from this to that and getting clarity on where you support people, you're going to be able to build a very successful, very robust business. And here's the deal, talking about referrals. If someone has an amazing experience with you buying their condo downtown and tells their friend, you've got to work with this realtor, this is the best agent I've ever had, they're not going to care that like you're the condo downtown person. They're going to say, I trust Jeff, and Jeff told me that you're the best. Can you help me? You're going to talk to them. You're going to say, I can absolutely help you. And they're going to say, great, let's do it. So you will continue to get referral business based on the amazing job you do with the people in those specialized niches. That doesn't mean that's the only type of business that you can do. But if you don't have anything to stake your claim to and say, this is what I'm great at, this is where I'm at, you're going to have a very hard time attracting those customers at the onset.
And this is exactly the wedding joke with Seinfeld is, if you're everything to everyone, you're nothing. So you got to stand out. You had an interesting point in your book where you spoke to someone who worked for nonprofits, and they talked about where most donations come from, which really surprised me.
Yeah, so this was with the leader of Feeding America, and she said, do you know the number one reason people donate? And I said, because they want a tax break. And she laughed and she was like, no, that's not it. And I said, okay, because they were touched by food insecurity as a child. They either didn't have enough to eat or saw people in their community without enough to eat. She said, nope, that's not it. And I said, okay, they see the impact of the food kitchens and food pantries in their own community. And she was like, nope, I'm going to just tell you at this point, the number one reason people donate to Feeding America is because they are asked to donate to Feeding America. Time and time again, that is what people say. I gave money because someone asked me to. You sent me a letter, you sent me an email, you called me on the phone, you asked me to give you money. And so I did. The same thing is true of referrals. People make referrals because they are asked to make referrals. And sometimes we can fall into this point of complacency of or expectation of like, well, of course somebody should know that I want a referral. Like that's common sense. But everyone is so busy. Nobody is thinking about what another person might want if that other person doesn't explicitly ask for it, and make it simple to do. If you want referrals, ask your customers for them. Tell them why they matter and make it simple for them to make the referral, the introduction, the testimonial, like whatever it is that you're asking for along that process. Make it simple, tell them why it matters, and they're more likely to do it.
Yeah, that really surprised me. But, we do that where we think, oh, well, these people just know, they'll remember to refer me, whatever. One, they're thinking about other things. If people are not remembering to donate to their charity that they love, they're not going to think about getting you referrals unless it really smacks them in the face.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, they found over and over, you have to ask, and I'm bad about this, is ask people to subscribe. And it's just this weird thing. And I find it myself to like, oh yeah, maybe I'm really bad about subscribing, but I'm like, it makes me think about it. And like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. It's just that extra thing that breaks us out of our pattern or whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's so important. So my book came out in January. We're recording this in October. I've sold about 15,000 copies of my book between hardcovers, the audiobook, ebooks, like roughly 15,000 copies. I have 116 reviews on Amazon. They're like great reviews, but I'm like, okay, I've sold 15,000 copies of my book. And what I have found is that when I ask for them, I'm very likely to get them. But when I don't ask, I don't get them. And a lot of people who've told me they've loved my book, and I've said, thank you so much. Like, have you reviewed it? And they're like, no. And I asked them to, and they're like, of course I will. But it's like, I don't know, Mike, have you reviewed my book on Amazon?
I have not.
You have not, because why would you? I haven't asked you to. Why would you think of that? You have a million things going on in your life. Why would at any point you would be like, you know what, I bet Brittany Hodak would love right now? She would probably love for me to go on Amazon and like write a review of her book. Why would you ever think of that? Hey, Mike, now that I've asked you, would you please consider taking about a minute to leave a review for my book on Amazon? They are so helpful for first-time authors. It helps tell Amazon that my book is helping people so that their algorithms will recommend it to other people. It would mean the world to me if you could do that. Would you please take a couple minutes later today and review my book?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So see, that's as simple as it is what it sounds like, right? Like in real estate, and thank you, by the way, I really do appreciate you reviewing the book. It is super helpful, but like, you can't just say, oh, I sold someone a house. They seem super happy. They're going to tell other people about me. Like, that's not how it works. You've got to tell people throughout the process how much you enjoy working with them, how happy you are to get the honor of helping them with this hugely important process, and tell them that you would love nothing more than to help other people who matter to them find a home too, and that you're going to make sure that their experience is just as good as the one that, you know, they've just had with you. Like, you've got to tell people that and remind them that, because if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it.
So sometimes we ask and they say they'll do it, and then they don't do it because they forget and the life gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how important they are? How many times should someone ask over time to remind them? They're like, oh, yeah, I forgot I want to do it. Should we let it go? Hope they remember it? Should we ask a few more times? How's a good way to approach that? Because with the other 1,000 agents we're competing against, those reviews matter so much because everyone's checking us on Zillow and some of the other sites.
Yeah. So with reviews, you must have an automated process that you're using to collect those reviews, to push them out to the most important places. You've got to figure out, like, I mean, the best thing is a review that can go everywhere. And obviously there's lots of experience management software that you can use to automate somebody, you know, writing a sentence about you and then pushing it to Zillow and Facebook and Google My Business and everywhere else. But, here's the approach that I would take in real estate. I would make sure that you're mentioning 2 times minimally, but no more than 4 throughout the process, how much reviews matter to you. And saying at some point, I'm going to, you know, at the end of this process, I would love for you to leave me a review. It is so incredibly helpful, so that they know that it matters to you. Then when you actually make the ask, do a callback. Say, like, you know, hey, Jeff, like, hope you guys are getting settled in. Like, hope that, you know, is the refrigerator stocked? Is all the boxes unpacked? Whatever. I know you've got a million things going as you settle in, but I'm going to ask you to please take about 3 minutes today and leave a review for me if you get a chance. I know I already told you a little bit why it matters, but as you know, as a real estate agent, like 100% of my money comes from commission, and basically, like, I only get paid when my customers are happy, something like that. And so the most important thing for my business is finding other great people to work with. I loved working with you. I have found that great people typically hang out with great people. So any friends or family members that you have that are looking would mean the world for me. If you could connect us. In the interim, the next best thing to an in-person recommendation is the trust that I build online through reviews. Can you leave a 2-sentence review for me by clicking this button? And then follow up again in like 10 days if they haven't done that. I would not ask for that review again until I have added more value. Like, I would then put them into my, if you do have a drip campaign of like, here's the monthly events that are happening in and around Portland, or, hey, here's what you need to know as a new home owner, like in this new zip code, or, you know, here's, again, like whatever value you add that you're doing. The next time you talk to them, if you know it's been like a few months and they haven't reviewed you, only when you're calling them to add value to them can you be like, oh, hey, by the way, I don't know if you ever got a chance to getting around to it, but like, if you've got 30 seconds and can leave a review for me on Google, I was just thinking about when you told me you loved that I did XYZ, like, man, that was such great feedback. If you could write that and post it, it would really, really help me out a lot. Like, you'd really be doing me a solid.
I love that. That is super helpful. I just had him memory of I've had lots of agents, and I've done this myself, is we let too much time go between the last time we saw our clients or talked to them till now. And we're embarrassed. It's weird. It's like, I think a lot of agents, like right after the deal, they're like, oh my gosh, what if something's wrong? What if the garbage disposal broke down? And they get this fear. And then all of a sudden it gets to be so long, it's awkward, and they don't know how to re-engage. How can we re-engage the best way, get over the awkwardness so that we can get back into a positive experience to maybe make up that difference of the gap?
Well, I mean, the first thing is just reminding yourself you have to do it, or this person is like no longer, like you're never going to get business. Like what is the greater evil, that you have to like figure out how to make something a little less awkward because you haven't talked to them in 7 weeks, or just like not ever getting a referral from them forever and ever and ever and never like working with them? Like obviously that is the scarier thing, right? So I would say just embrace it. Like and it's always easy to come up with an excuse. Like it's always easy to be like, hey, hey John, like I've been thinking about you guys a lot over the past few months. Every time I drive by your house. But I drove by yesterday and realized like I haven't talked to you in so long. Just wanted to reach out and see how everything's going. Like I hope you guys are loving it, because we can think that they're thinking, oh, I haven't heard from my realtor, but like in reality, no one is thinking that. Like literally no one is like, why hasn't my realtor followed up with me? Right. We all have stuff going on. So to say like, hey, have been thinking about you guys, but like just saw this game on TV, just read this article, just drove by your house, just saw this stat about, this weird like hobby that you have. Find a way to make an excuse to reach out to them, and don't ask for anything. Just share value. Just either say like, hope you're doing really great. Is there anything I can do for you? Are you guys settling in? Or like share whatever that thing is, like a funny video clip or an article or a list of things going on in the community, whatever it is.
That's helpful. That's helpful. And that's a good point, is you're thinking most likely more about it than they are. And they've like, oh
100%.
God, it's been that long. I didn't realize. I did have one person where it did get awkward when, I got back to get, talking to them, and they said, yeah, you just kind of disappeared. And I was like, dang it.
Had they reached out to you though? Like, were you like ghosting them?
No, I wasn't ghosting them. It just all of a sudden I was like, I got to get back. I got to call them, because like, we'd been somewhat acquaintance friends, and we'd been looking to houses, seeing each other all the time. And then I was like, I don't want to bother them. I they're busy packing. And then the time got a little bit awkward. And I was like, I don't, because, you're right. It's the future pain feels bad, but right now you're feeling the pain now. And so you're like, I'll call them next week, or I'll wait till I have something of value. And then at some point we connected. I'm not sure how. And they're like, yeah, you just kind of disappeared. We were talking all the time. I was like, oh, it was like the worst feeling too.
Well, but to your point, that's like treating a friend or family member differently than a normal client, because it sounds like you hadn't established like you're looking to move. I am your realtor. This is the timeline. This is the budget, right? It was sort of just like a casual thing. So going back to like, you have to treat your friends the same way you would treat a stranger. And at the onset to say like, hey, we're buddies, but for the next however long this takes, I am going to treat you like I would treat any other customer, because that's the way I know this process is going to be the most effective and efficient for you. Like, because I value your time, you're getting like realtor Mike, not like college drinking friend Mike.
Right. You talked about gift giving and doing personalized gifts. I got a little, I got worried about being cheesy. Like, what's a good gift? Is this too much? Is this too personal? Whatever. And I had someone who, there's this one kind of food that was their thing. And I was like, oh, you know what? I should send them that. But then I started to question my head. It's like, did I hear them right? What if it's not really that food? And I got into this stupid thing in my head where I ended up sending nothing. So it's the fear of making a mistake. And I know it's the thought that counts, but the logic did not work in my brain at that point. So how do we, I think on the disc, we talk about the disc a lot here. So, and you said, it, so I was bringing it up, but the high eyes, they typically like gifts and all these other things. Other people don't really care. And so how do we, besides knowing their disc, how do we get past our own fear that, they probably will like the thought and just go ahead and take the shot?
So I think that if you find yourself trying to personalize something for everyone and getting stuck in that, then a good system is to say, I'm going to come up with 5 gifts across the board that I know I can customize within each category. And I'm going to pick the best of the 5 that I think is going to work. And like maybe one of those is you say, I'm going to make a doormat. It might be a doormat that says house divided with 2 teams. It might be a doormat that says welcome y'all. If somebody loves country music, it might be one with their family on it because you printed a picture of their kids or their puppy or whatever, but you're like category 1 doormat. Most people don't move with a welcome mat, right? So this is like when somebody's in a new house, like there's a good chance that they're going to need one, even if it's just like a color with their address on it, right? Welcome to, 123 Jefferson Lane. Category number 2, a puzzle. People like puzzles, especially like in the wintertime or if they've got kids or grandkids. You can take a listing photo or a picture of somebody in front of their house and turn it into a puzzle in an hour at every single Walgreens and CVS store in America, right? So like you're gonna be like, all right, am I gonna give them a puzzle or am I gonna give them a doormat or am I gonna give them a set of, drinking glasses, like whatever the categories are in your mind. And so that way you're reducing the effort that it takes for you. You're not starting from scratch. It's like, I have 5 things that I do. Are they going to get the cookies? Are they going to get the doormat? Are they going to get the puzzle? Are they going to get the subscription service? Or are they going to get like the pot of mums with like garden gloves and a garden flag and a Home Depot gift card? Like those are the things. And then to your point, most people are going to appreciate the gift. What's going to make it feel special and personal is the card that you write or whatever that extra touch is. So like it's a puzzle, it's going to feel personal because it's their house. It's a doormat, it's going to feel personal because it's their names or their picture or their whatever. So like customization within categories. And then if you hear an opportunity because somebody's like, oh man, I love Dr. Pepper. And you're like, oh, I remember seeing like Dr. Pepper scented candles at the mall last week. I'm going to get somebody like a, 12-pack of Dr. Pepper and a Dr. Pepper scented candle and some Dr. Pepper lip gloss. Like when you have the opportunity to do that and go above and beyond, great. But when you don't, you've still got like a really solid plan B that to most people is still going to exceed their expectations.
That's helpful. I like that. I just happened to see a video last night, which I think is perfect for our conversation today. It was John Taffer from Bar Rescue. For those that don't know, he's just this restaurant maven. He knows how to fix them and flip them. And he was talking about if someone goes to a restaurant and they have a perfect meal, there's only a 40% chance, 42% chance they're going to come back. If they have a second meal that's perfect, it's still only 42%. It's that 4th time, it's that 4th experience where then it goes up to 70% chance they'll come back. And this is why customer experience is so important. Everything was perfect, but it's going to one above. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, is there any stone we left unturned to help real estate agents? Any last words you want to help them with?
I would say living by the mantra that when you tell people you're great, that's marketing. When your customers tell people you're great, that's magic. That's when everything starts to come together. That's when you build that referable business that is going to, stand the test of time. So I didn't get through the entire supermodel, but it's in the book. You can find it wherever books are sold. If you can consistently and repeatedly exceed your customers' expectations in a way that is scalable and honest to you, like very authentic to you, you will find success. You will be one of those top 5, top 3, top 1% realtors if you commit to doing the things that most people aren't going to do.
I love that. So where can they buy your book and then leave you a review?
Yes. Well, thank you for bringing the review up. Those are so very important. The book is available at Amazon. You can get it in a hardcover version. You can get an ebook, or you can get the Audible version that I narrate. And I would be incredibly grateful for any review anybody wants to leave.
Well, awesome. And you have a website they can check you out at?
I do. I'm at BrittanyHodak.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I think this was super helpful. And the book it's for me, it's kind of like a workbook, like go through it, do the things, figure out everything, and take things to the next level. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here, Mike. I really appreciate it.